This was my Alaska trip in 2023. Packed up the bike, was ready to go. Took off and stopped one time, take a photograph by a sign just to say I was on the road. Hooked up with my roommate Roosevelt in Chicago, stayed at his house for a couple of nights, and then I was off to South Dakota. Made it to South Dakota. I think it took about 14 hours altogether. Once I got there at the entrance, took a couple of photographs at the South Dakota sign, and saw the largest, absolutely the largest teepee ever seen in my life. And then it was off to the Badlands to meet the rest of the guys that were going on the trip. Once we left the Badlands, went over to Trailside Park and pitched the tent. I'd be staying there, I thought, for a couple of days. The Trailside Park was actually a nice place. Grass, flat grass. Hung out there. That was our setup. I set up with my tent on the inside with the sleeping bag. The place was very clean. Probably one of the cleanest places that I stayed at all during the time that I was traveling. Clean showers, clean toilet, clean sink. And we pitched our tents dual side by side, so we actually left the bikes outside. And that night, everybody else showed up to hang out with us at our campsite. So we talked, BS'd, told a whole bunch of lies, kept it moving, And that night was just a night to chill out and get ready for the morning ride, which took us to Mount Rushmore. And you see Mount Rushmore in the distance. Took a few selfie photographs just to say I was there. Then we all met and congregated before we went over to Crazy Horse Mountain to see Crazy Horse Mountain and do some additional riding. Once Crazy Horse, we went down and rode on 7th Iron Mountain Road. Kind of exciting, a lot of twists, a lot of turns, narrow, but we had a good time. Came back to the campsite, had a little snack before I decided to start cooking some food for the evening, and cooked it. Everything went over well. Next day, it was off to Sturgis. Went to Sturgis and drove around Sturgis for a little while. Left Sturgis on our way to the Devil's Tower. That's Slappy in the background over there. And then this is a photograph of the Devil's Tower. Then we got to Billings, Montana, and I was on my own. I just took off and went to Glacier National Park. Once in Glacier National Park, I was able to see a few animals roaming around in the territory. Took some beautiful pictures by some of the mountain sites. Then went through Logan Pass on the bike. Took a nice photo in front of the lake or pond or whatever you want to call it. It's there. From Glacier National Park, it was off to the Canadian border, where I took this photo of the border going into Alberta. And I'm on my way towards Alaska on my solo trip. Met some very nice people, had lunch with them at one of the rest stops that I took during my travels. And they were from Australia, and had Jimmy rig there set up, and we're off and moving. Then I went on to Jasper National Park and went through Jasper. Took this picture in front of one of the mountains in the background. Thought it was a great photograph, so I figured I'd capture it while I was there. And the scenery was absolutely wonderful. The weather started to turn a little bit on me, so I felt it was necessary to find myself a campsite and pitched my tent, put my bike inside, avoided the rain. The bike was dry in the morning. I was dry in the morning. Just open space there at Dawson Creek, where there were other campers there, even people that were doing car camping. The next morning, got up and got onto the Alaska Highway, making my way northwest to get to Alaska. Drove through Yukon territory and took a couple of photographs there. Went on to Watson Lake, and in Watson Lake there's the signpost memorial where they have all of these signs from folks that have traveled up north there, and they leave license plates, they leave stickers, they leave all kinds of things saying that they were there. And it was started, I guess, by a military man years and years ago, but it's a nice place called the Signpost Forest. Every time I saw a gas station, I made sure I stopped. That way I wouldn't run out. Once I got to Beaver Creek, pitched my tent again and met these guys who were actually from Anchorage, and they were heading south. We had dinner together that night, met new friends basically. Went on to Tok, Alaska after traveling through Destruction Bay, which was absolutely horrible, but made it. Destruction Bay is what it says, and it put a toll on the bike. I mean, I was dirty, filthy, nasty. Tried to clean it off a little bit. Then I ran into these guys that were from Greece, and we talked for a moment before we were off and headed north. Finally got to Fairbanks. Made it to Fairbanks, and the weather in Fairbanks was absolutely wonderful. I think it was somewhere in the 80s, temperature-wise, sunny, no rain in the forecast. Stayed at a Moose Lodge, which was like a resort, so they were actually busing people into this resort. Stayed there for, a couple of days. Because I was planning on going to the Arctic Circle, but it rained the day I planned on going there. As you can see, the temperature 81 high, lows 63, perfect motorcycle weather. Rode around Fairbanks, went over to the University of Alaska. Once I got to Fairbanks, decided I was going to change my oil for the trip down towards Anchorage and stuff. Had a wonderful dinner. Lodge in Fairbanks. Supposed to have been a famous lodge. The food was absolutely great. Left Fairbanks the next day. Went on to Denali National Park. Once in Denali, rode around Denali National Park. Saw a number of sights. Saw some animals, of course. It's the largest park in the United States. You can take a tour on a bus, but the tour on the bus is an all-day affair, and I wasn't looking to spend all day in Denali National Park. I just wanted to go there, see a couple of things, and keep it moving, because that is kind of my way. I don't like to get trapped where I don't control when I'm able to leave. Had dinner that night at another restaurant, so spent a couple of dollars every time I ate. Took some photographs once I got to Anchorage, just to show I had been there. And as you can see, the bike is cleaner, but still dirty. Met with some guys and told them I was traveling by myself. They gave me this cross, said it would protect me on my ride. Took the day to go and watch the whales, to see them feeding in the morning. Did that, stayed there for, I don't know, about two hours or so. Took some photographs in the area where they were. Alaska's beautiful. Went on to Whittier, so I can see the melting glaciers coming down the mountainside. because evidently most of the people that work in the Whittier area stay in this little hotel here with this running water behind it. This sign talked about motorcycles traveling through the train tunnel. The mosquitoes were everywhere. Had to wear a face net so I could wait for my turn to go through the tunnel. And the weather there, a little chillier, but still it was great motorcycle weather. This is one of the glaciers that I saw during my travels. Great mountain view in the backdrop where the bike is. Just had a really good time traveling through Alaska. And just as everybody else was doing, when I stopped, I left my sticker to show that I had been there. And 2023, Blue was in Alaska. This is the money shot, the Alaska sign going north. You know, I felt pretty good about myself and my accomplishments and getting there. And then it was time to head back south towards the States. Ran to this motorcycle camp where you can actually get a tent site or you can get a cabin, whichever one you prefer. And nice and secure, you know. According to the owner, there are animals present around the campsite, but none bothered me while I was there during my stay. And you know, the only difficult thing was it was gravel, and you had to ride on the gravel as you try to get to your tent site. Then on the way south, went by Muncho Lake, and as you can see, it's a nice lake, and the color of the lake is blue. Or jade green, I should say. Then it was back off to the first stop that I tented, and that was in Dawson Creek. And I just called ahead of time, and I told them I'd be arriving late. They said, no worries, just pitch your tent, and you can pay in the morning. And the same thing when I went to this RV park, just called them, and when I called, they left my information hanging on the door because they were closed when I got there. And it had my tent site on there. And all I had to do was go pull up to the little tent site, set myself up, and I was good. Then I came back down and got to the border. Of course, there's always cars at the border. And they acted as though they didn't want to let me back in the States, as if I had done something. But eventually got through the States and made my way home. That was a great trip. Like, share, and subscribe, and comment if you want to. Thank you. Blue Magic Motorcycle Rides.